There's no better time to be in our industry than now. We, as an industry, are moving more to like an enterprise software industry. It's fundamentally because enterprise software norms are impacting our industry.
And I think a lot of these operators are struggling to figure out, like, how do I adapt to that?
Let's not kid ourselves. Some of the world's largest institutions and companies entering into our space are going to dynamically change the business models.
Alarms are going to represent the minority of the security investment, and it's going to be consolidated into video and/or access control.
If anybody in our industry comes to you and brings mobile or AI and they don't treat it like it's architecture, throw them out of your office.
Welcome to Entry and Exit. My name is Stephen Olmon. This is my business partner and co-host Collin Trimble. We run Alarm Masters in Houston, Texas by day, and by night we run Entry and Exit, a podcast where we try to give practical, tactical advice on the security and life safety industry.
I'm really excited. Today's guest is someone most folks in the access control world already know, Lee Odess. Lee leads a handful of well-known brands in our space, including the Access Control Collective, the Access Control Executive Brief, and ACS events, where he's focused on thought leadership, community, and bringing people together. He also serves on the SIA board and has spent more than 2 decades working with companies like Brevo, Latch, Unikey, and Allegiant. Long story short, Lee knows his way around the security industry, and I'm excited to have him on the show. Lee, thanks for being here, man.
Of course, happy to do this. I've seen what you've done before, so it's nice to actually be on it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're pumped that you're here. Lee, what you should know is you are our very first guest on Entry and Exit. We are very excited that you're here.
Thank you for that, the honor. I'll do my best to not screw it up. And for everyone else that comes on after, it's all uphill. So you're good.
Yeah, you're setting a high bar for us. We're excited to jump in. Lee, the first thing we want to do is just give the listeners a little bit about your path. You've obviously been in the industry for a long time. You have a ton of experience, a lot obviously in the access control world, but you have done everything from the integration side to the manufacturer side, and now on the media side. So we'd love to hear about your experience, how you got there, and kind of what you're focused on right now.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. So yeah, I started off on the integration side. More I was on the audio video end of it and worked closely with the security integrator locally in the marketplace here. Once I went through that and was ready for something different, spoke to the security guy that I worked with. He knew the CEO of Brevo and said, hey, you should go talk to him. I was brought on, did a marketing. We had this labs division there. It's really early in the cloud access control side, so I learned a lot. It really was the beginning of, if I look back to a lot of what I talk about today and what we do, it sort of started there and germinated. From there, went to Unikey, which after I saw him on Shark Tank, was like, hey, also he went to my alma mater. So I was like, somebody in the industry on a show I watched, like I want in on this. So went there for a couple years. Then from there went to Allegiant, actually moved back to the DC area here where my wife and family wanted to be, and remotely worked for Allegiant, worked there primarily around the idea of taking the locks and integrating them into other ecosystems. So between the cloud base, Unikey being around first really around Bluetooth, but then also global expansion, then moving into Allegiant, which was giving me some experience around big company, frankly, public company stuff. And then also taking our locks, putting them into different ecosystems, working across a lot of things. From there, went out on my own, actually started something called Group 337, which was, the idea, frankly, was, it's pretty simple. I wanted to take everyone that I've met all over the globe that was doing some pretty cool stuff. I wanted to bring them onto platforms that I was using, like LinkedIn and YouTube, and tell their story. Then I had this great idea of going to ISC West, and I was going to film there, bring all of that, and like do a trade show online on LinkedIn. But that was January of 2020. By March of 2020, there was no trade show. No one could travel. But the good news is I had 70 videos. And while everyone was scrambling to get cameras and mics, I had that already. So I just started putting that stuff out. I started writing about, frankly, frustrations in the market that I saw, or things that many people join. So then I was like, oh, wow, we turned kind of into a media/analyst company. Latch was a customer. They saw it. They acquired us after they went public. Then I was there for a short period of time, went back and with my business partner, Hillary, who's been with me for like 15 years, said, hey, let's do this again now that the world's opened up,
Yeah.
but let's go do omni-channel, like go out, look at trends, build community. I wrote this book called The 6-Phase Changes Shaping Access Control, which was really around applying digital transformation to it. And that's what we wanted to go out and talk about. But everything we've done, frankly, has been focused on communities of people and communication, observations, insight. So touched a lot, sort of brought it all together to really what we currently have today with the Access Control Collective.
Yeah, well, I will say this. It was successful because everybody knows who you are. I can't go to an industry event and they don't know who Lee is. It's like the what is it, like 10 degrees of Kevin Bacon or 3 degrees or whatever. It's like the 3 degrees of Lee Odess. Yeah.
Hey, it's a niche, small market. I talk a lot. We actually are doing my brief, which I write for the last one, and was going through the year in review of like how many posts we've done, all this stuff. And it's, on LinkedIn alone, we're 1,200 posts, I think it is.
Great. Wow.
Since January. So it's a lot of talking, a lot of writing, a lot of going out in person, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's great. That's really fun. We're really excited that you're here because what we really focus on is giving folks kind of practical and tactical advice about how to improve their business and things that they need to look at to increase the value of their business. And one of the reasons we're really excited to have you on the pod is we really want to get a perspective. You've obviously been on the integration side, been on the manufacturer side, now on the media side. You're super well connected. What we'd love to kind of start with is 2 to 3 trends or themes or any shifts that you're seeing in the industry that you think is sort of a blind spot for operators. I want to make sure that we're not just covering the basic stuff where it's like, oh yeah, if you're not doing cloud applications, you should be doing that. It's like all of our peers have heard that until they're blue in the face. Yeah. So now it's like, hey, what do we need to know about? Like from your perspective, if you could put a billboard up in front of these operators, what would you tell them? What are 2 to 3 things that you think we need to know about?
Yeah. All right. So first off, I'm a firm believer that, and frankly, I'll do it from an operator standpoint of like understanding and appreciating the friction that's created around this idea of having to deliver for today.
Yeah.
And especially since a lot of the operators, small operations, a lot of the large ones thought to get a lot of the airtime, and frankly, a lot of the programs are built for them and then shoved down through the channel.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily align with what I'll call a local operator is. But so understanding some of the pressures that exist there. So some things that I would think about that is a couple things. There's no better time to be in our industry than now. That's the first thing I would start with. And I say that because we hear a lot of negativity with the changes that are happening, whether it's AI, whether it's cloud and the changes, what it has with like manufacturers now talking to end users, like all of those things. It's a mindset change, in my opinion, more than it is a technical change that's happening. And the reason being is that for the past 30 years, if you think of it as a math problem, the numerator hasn't changed. Same type of systems. Frankly, it's been iterations. The business models were the same. The value creation, the delivery of the promise to the market of like keeping bad people out, locking and unlocking. Again, I'm simplifying it, but in general terms, like it was kind of known. The competitors were known, the products were known, like all of that stuff was known.
Yeah.
Now the numerator and denominator have changed, and because of that, we also have to change. The people with the mindset where either they're fighting it and resisting it, because in a lot of ways it challenges our self-identity as an industry in a lot of cases, right? A lot of these changes happen. So, but if you change the mindset in some ways, and I'm not trying to be woo-woo with you on this, but I find it happen. Like everyone I go out and talk to, it's usually the first, I could tell by almost the first breath, it's either an excitement breath that they have, or it's like a, like, I was going to retire soon. Yeah. Like now I got to worry about this. Like, so it's a mind shift change in my opinion. And I would look at it from a positive standpoint. All right. So enough with that said, the change though of the business too is that we as an industry are moving more to like an enterprise software industry. And if we look across the aisle, we hear a lot about IT convergence, the rest of it. That's sort of downstream a little bit. more upstream of what's happening is enterprise software fundamentals are coming into our industry. And we have historically been able to say, this is about risk and you don't
Yeah.
want it. So people are like, all right,
Right.
I'm not going to get involved. Well, now all of these people are getting involved and they're happy to take on the risk because frankly, the physical side is not just the only thing. It's cyber. There's a belief that if I adopt technology, that it actually can increase not only levels of safety but also of convenience.
That's right.
And it's challenging this traditional norms that we've had as an industry. I call them old truths.
Yeah.
Right. Things like a feature of our industry used to be, we go slow. We don't adopt it because again, we're delivering safety and security. So if we go fast, we adopt new technology, that flies in the face of what we've done. So we've been able to push that off to where now that's a bug. Like you have to be ingesting some, not all. There still needs to be, just like not every new truth is a good thing, but we got to kill some old truths, bring the ones forward that are going to support us for what's next, bring in some new truths and say not yet for the other ones, and create what we need. I jokingly say it is that, I believe what we have and what industry is speaking to a lot of the operators. We as operators, I'll put me in that, have been coming to you and saying, hey, let's use a basketball analogy. I know you're a 5'5" guard. And the game early on was like made up of 5'5" guards.
That's
right?
right.
Fast, they're shooting. Like it was, then all of a sudden you're like, man, we need some 7-foot centers. And like, we're going to you and saying, I need you to be a 7-foot center. It's like, dude, that's genetics.
They
I'm
can't
not going to be a 7-foot center. Right.
Yeah.
It's just not who I am.
Yeah.
But we need to go find 7-foot centers and marry them with the 5'5" guards to put together the people that we need to go and take the industry to where it needs to go. Doesn't mean that it's bad. This is just different in a lot of ways. So, and it's fundamentally because enterprise software norms are impacting our industry.
Yeah.
Fundamental. Like that's what's happening. I'll stop there.
No, I can't agree more. I think I remember a decade ago I was working at Brevo, and I was a regional sales manager talking to independent operators, and they didn't know what an API was. These they were installers that knew how to do inputs and outputs. They understood low voltage. And they didn't understand what is an API, what is software. The software is the disk that I get when I buy it from ADI and put it on my server and I load the software up. And that has fundamentally changed in the consumer mindset, but hasn't all the way permeated down into the operators. And I think a lot of folks are struggling with that because not only has that enterprise model permeated the physical security space, the enterprise model is shifting down market. So now we're finding companies that are mid-market that are, sub $250 million, even sub $100 million that have full identity platforms. They're using a version of Active Directory or using Azure, and that identity connector to an access control platform is a qualifier for them, even if they only have 5 doors of access control. And I think a lot of these operators are struggling to figure out, like, how do I adapt to that? How do I figure out how to approach that new norm? I think a lot of our listeners, regardless of what stage they're in their journey of being an operator or working at a security company, are really trying to figure out, how do we do that? How do we change our mindset to be adaptable to some of that? And so, what do you think, man? Like, what's some advice on how to do that?
Here, so if anybody in our industry comes to you and brings anything to you, whether it's cloud, mobile, or AI, and they treat it like it's a feature of the existing product that they have, and they don't treat it like it's architecture, throw them out of your office.
Yeah, agreed.
Because part of the problem is how my belief is we are approaching these things as features of an iterative foundation that is not going to support, frankly, what is going to move forward. So it creates confusion.
Yeah.
And I think the ones that are fundamentally shifting the way that they approach this is saying, okay, cloud, mobile, AI, these things create value. And that value is operational efficiencies, revenue generation, higher levels of security, data, whatever it might be. Those are the actual products that come out of this thing. So first off is to take a look at who you want to be, the market you want to serve, your strategy, your growth, what you want. And then almost like, I use this analogy a lot, but I will take that Men in Black stick and like erase your brain of like what you knew.
Yeah.
And then approach the market in that manner of like, you have the fundamentals of understanding safety and security. that's your opportunity to win.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how good the app is that's being brought into the building to order lattes. If I don't feel safe and I'm not safe, I'm not going in that building.
That's
So
right.
we have the right to win and permission. You all have like the right to win. You're the people locally doing that and delivering it to them.
That's right.
Use that on your toes versus your heels and say, great, what are the products now that I need in services in order to support the vision and where I want to take my company, versus saying, I need to add cloud to this thing.
Yeah.
I need to add mobile to this thing.
Yeah.
Like right now, the whole conversation about mobile wallets is broke, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because we're treating it as an iteration of a card in a phone.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I get it. That's part of it. But it's what it can do that transforms the way. And if you did that, your skill sets would change of what you have in a tenant. Maybe the way you bill would change, the way you communicate, the customer sets that you talk to, who you partner with, how you make money. All that stuff could fundamentally change. Like, for instance, you may now be moved from a security integrator and you may say, you know what? I'm now going to be a systems integrator. Great. What does that mean? I'm not talking about HVAC and security.
Yeah.
I'm saying like maybe, I don't know, you're going to get certified in Salesforce now.
Yeah.
Because it's about operational automation.
Yeah.
And I'm using mobile in my access control system, which, yes, it delivers safety and security, but that data now can be utilized to do things like occupancy or workflows around badging, around whatever. But like, it's a total different mindset. And I would look for the people who are creating programs and are creating products that fundamentally support the vision that you have of what the marketplace looks like and how you want to show up and how you want to make money.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think that it's so funny that in this industry, a lot of these operators, they think of cloud or a security suite like an LPR camera. Like, oh, I need to be able to add, license analytics into my suite of feature set. I need to check that box as an offering. And they've really got to shift their mindset around offering a security suite to their customers. They also need to figure out like, what is their lane? And that's something that we talk about all the time on this pod is you can't be everything to everyone. You need to decide who your ideal client profile is, and you need to go attack that with whatever your value proposition is. Because I do think that as much as some people say, oh, well, the physical security space is going to be totally adopted into the IT world, into VAR world, like that's where it's going. I don't know that it's going to go quite that direction. I think that a lot of folks need to understand and be able to operate. But I think that there is value, like you said, in being able to continue to do the security expert. You are there to make that space safer, right? Like that
I'll even go as far, it's a fundamental right and a utility that we deliver. And then like all these companies, these tech companies, a lot of them, especially I use prop tech applications, they ultimately become access control products.
That's it.
In the end.
That's it.
Because the utility of what they deliver is what's needed. Now it's our position to add more value on of what we do. And I do want to preface it this. A lot of this is a binary type conversation, and it's not. What I want to make sure, this is an and conversation. Because if you think about it, what's happening, I'll take access control. Omdia a while ago said that our market size is like somewhere like 10 to 12 billion. I think, again, I've been well documented and written about it. I think it's garbage, but it's numbers that we all collectively agree upon. So we all hallucinate around them. Fine. We'll use that as a baseline. Let's say it is the high security locking and unlocking global market, access control 10 to 12. That is the high security market as we've known it and has been for the past 30 years of electronic access control. That is the cottage industry, frankly, of our industry.
Yeah.
Which is fundamentally, and that's not negative. I'm part of that. It's my identity as a person too in this industry. I've been working within the high security. Now what's happening as we have become more like enterprise software, and because of cloud and mobile and all these other things, we're now going to a mainstream market, which is about what else you can deliver on top of that utility. The math we did was a $70 billion market off of that. I say 100 billion because it's bigger than 70, but the math that we put together is 70 billion. That's called marketing, right?
Yeah, right.
We put together $70 billion market to show what the TAM is. It includes the 10 billion.
Yeah.
So that's why there's no better time. You can decide today, do I want to continue to deliver the high security and do that? There's the $10 billion market. Go after it. 12, whatever.
Right.
Go get it. Good CAGR, good growth, 12% growth. Awesome. A lot of people great businesses have gotten rich, family owned business, whatever. Like you can choose what you want, your own adventure there. It also means though, I can make a decision to go after that 60 billion and be something different than I am today. That too is also okay.
Mhm.
It's about the entire thing. We haven't had this in 30 years as an industry.
I completely agree. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think the timeline is for some of these massive shifts to come in? Like,
That's the bajillion dollar. So that's why I call all these things we talk about and I write about inevitable trends, because I'm tired of pretending like they're not happening.
Yeah.
They're inevitably happening.
Yeah.
Then I'm also tired of talking about the future, because these things are today happening.
Yeah.
So I call it today forward. So like if we ground on the fact that these are inevitable truths, and it's today forward, what we can always argue about, and I'm happy to do it, is when it's going to happen and the impact that it will have. Like, though, to me, those are the things that go. So good on you for asking that question, because to me, that's the right question to ask.
Yeah.
My opinion is that it's actually funny to this point. I'm writing this brief, and like usually October, I write one that's like the trends for the next year.
Yeah.
And I'm like writing it and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, because it's not trends. This is like inevitable truths of evolution of what's happening in our industry. So I'm actually going to reflect back to talk about how we can use the past to dictate what happens in the future. But anyways, my opinion is 3 to 5 years, inevitably, some of these things are going to be true in full swing. Mobile adoption, I think the minority of our industry, which is the mainstream personally, will outweigh the cottage industry, which is the majority right now. Right now, small part of our industry has a large part of the voice. 3 to 5 years, the small part of our industry will have a large part of our voice. So these trends, so that to me, and it's like almost like cop out on my end of saying, like, I believe a lot of these truths that we're talking about, like growth of adoption of mobile, cloud, the IT convergence, I think biometric increase, I think I think every access control company is a video company, and every video company is an access control company.
100%.
Like those things, like, so all of these truths will be happening at different, but they will be fundamentally in flight happening currently now. Now, I see my friends out there that are talking about like AI driven, what do they call them? The video, like I forgot what the term is that they use for it, but like some of the more bleeding edge side of what's happening in our industry, that too is true. It's happening. But I think some of the stuff that we've been talking about is like features of the old will be just norms of today, and some of the stuff that we're doing currently today will become more of the cottage in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I love that. So we talked timeline. One of the things that I want to know is, this is kind of a funny question, but sometimes when I get sick, the first thing that I know I'm about to get sick is I start to like get sleepy, and I start to like, my sleep gets bad. I want to sleep later, and I start to feel something kind of coming on. What are those early onset symptoms that these operators need to be aware of before? Like, I don't want to wait till it's in full swing, right? Like, we want to know, what are these early onset symptoms? What are we going to start to see? Because some people may just disagree with you inherently, right? And so the proof is, hey, if you start to see XYZ, then you should diagnose yourself with these following problems. Like, what do you think are some of the early onset symptoms? Like, oh, they're going to lose a deal to XYZ or whatever. Like, I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah. So first off, I would tell you, whatever somebody's experience is their truth of what's happening. And it just like, for everyone they can show me, I can show you one where it is happening. So they can argue with me. Again, let's argue about when and at what impact. But I'm happy to, I don't think we're going back to just metal keys only. And although I do think metal keys will exist, that's a great example. Like I'll be dead or retired by the time keys are gone. Like, I don't care. All the people that are saying they're gonna be gone, they're not. But yes, to your question, to some of the symptoms, I like that. I think if you're in a marketplace and you start to notice that certain verticals of yours are starting to change and look different because the solutions that are being brought in and adopted are making security a feature of a larger value proposition, you may have a problem. So a good example, if you've taken a product, let's say it's a product really that's built for government and has been built for airports, and we've just applied it to multifamily residential. and you just use less of the system there. But you notice all of a sudden there's these lock companies coming out with solutions that are getting adopted, or vertical solutions of like property management tools that are doing it. And you notice that you're not getting as many calls for that big system anymore to control the exterior, because all of a sudden the interior, or maybe that fancy box on the outside that used to be an intercom that our industry really didn't care about very much, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's become a digital interface to that. So the vertical shifts that are happening, that is a side effect of software coming to a customer and saying, deliver me more value. I am no longer okay with you telling me that I can't have this thing called tenants.
Right.
They have to be called users.
Yeah.
I am no longer going to wait for the roadmap to come to where I can get access to my data so that my maintenance crew can have automation to get access to the units.
Yeah.
I'm no longer going to put locks that are not digital on the doors interior because you haven't done an integration to these digital lock companies. Like all of that stuff is changing on that. So that the vertical side, you could even do that. I could have this same use case conversation around stadiums, same use case conversations around enterprise, commercial real estate. There's certain verticals to where the verticalization is happening at this point, that if you don't go deep into those areas with solution sets to deliver high amount of value in the language of how that certain vertical goes, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Massively in trouble. Another symptom, if you all of a sudden notice that, hey, weird, there's more manufacturers starting to do business development in my area. And you're no longer the control point of distribution of knowledge in the marketplace, because there's also this thing called the internet that people learn, and they can actually, talk to each other. And manufacturers are starting to understand also, because capital infusions coming into the marketplace to where there's an expectation of growth that is no longer going to be dictated by the channel alone.
That's right.
It doesn't mean, and I want to make sure it's understood, I'm not saying selling direct. That is something totally different.
That's right.
Business development, generation of opportunity versus selling direct, two different things. I do think we get to a point where a market motion is going to be where you have manufacturers selling direct, business development direct through the channel generated opportunities, and teaming.
Yeah.
Like that is what the enterprise software industry looks like. And as we mature and the market continues to grow, that is going to be the motion. Doesn't mean that it's the doomsday. I actually think it's net positive for the entire marketplace. It means there will be some winners and losers, of course, but in mass, in general, it'll be more positive for those that change. But if you're starting to notice that and you're not being part of those conversations, you may be in trouble on that end. Another one is if all of your revenue is being generated by hardware, you're probably in trouble.
Yeah. We talk about that all the time.
Yep.
And that's not like a high level, like you need more reoccurring.
Right.
No, it's not just that.
Right.
It's like that is, I would say that.
Yeah.
But I actually think the where value is starting to pool. This is about value pooling. You're starting to see a change and shift into software models that are, frankly, as an industry, we've had software that supports hardware. Well, now we're going to have hardware that supports software.
100%.
Yep.
So if you're noticing that and you look at your product mix, you may have a problem. I say you may because I do believe, just like a lot of, like, especially for a long time, there's a decent size of our market for a while that's going to be like, I joke that some access control companies, because they're not making changes enough, should come out and say, you know what, screw it. We're the best on-site, non-mobile, non-cloud.
Yeah.
Like,
Be honest.
Like this is who we're going to be.
Yeah.
Because we're going to grow 5%.
That's right.
We don't mind.
Yeah.
You don't mind. It's a good business. We got customers, but it's fine.
Yeah.
We're not going to be one of these high growth. It doesn't matter. Fine.
Right.
There's a market for it, and that's okay. And you should.
For now.
Just like, I can buy phones that don't have apps.
Right.
So those are some examples of what you can do. I would also say this, the other one that I think is interesting. If a majority, if you're in North America and you're only looking at North American products, you're probably in trouble as well.
Yeah.
because again, this is a symptom, in my opinion, of
Totally agree.
hardware driven only products, to where
Yeah.
like when it was hardware, the moats of entry for organizations like the Saltos of the world coming into North America,
Yeah.
that's hard.
Yeah.
You need a lot of capital to go do that on a hardware standpoint.
Mhm.
On software, moats reduce a bit.
Yep.
And there's a whole world out there of products that are coming in that you probably wouldn't think about or use, 5 years ago, that all of a sudden now make a lot of sense because they can work with your American made hardware,
Yeah.
but they may bring a level of, I don't know, workplace optimization, and you like just the sort of the cut that works and it uses, so you use that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean there's not North American software companies, but I would broaden your view of solution sets in the marketplace. Oh, I'll give you one too that is like a channel one that I love. If you collect brands just because, you're probably in trouble.
Oh no. Yep. Yeah.
And put them all over your website.
Yeah. This is the key theme of, like, gone are the days where it's impressive at how many different brands you carry. It's
Correct.
like the stamp of approval, like the litmus test for the quality of your business now. It's like, how few brands are you an expert on? Like the fact that I hate having to tell my peers, like, yeah, I've got, we do a lot of acquisition, and unfortunately I have to support 3 different access control platforms because I've acquired these businesses. We're actively trying to convert those customers so fast that we're actually giving away product for free just to convert them for the operational efficiency of getting everybody on the same platform.
Smart.
Yep.
I think it's smart.
And it's funny, you brought up the emerging market thing. How funny is this? 10 years ago, we'd go to ISC West, and there's like this little corner of a back room of the like symposium or the expo where it's emerging markets. And like they put all the international people over there. They shove them into the corner to say, hey, you're not important, but we're going to give you a space here. And then every single year, that part of the expo has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're getting bigger booths and doing more headline shows because I think people are starting to realize that software is driving this and that they're going to have to wake up. And here's another thing I want to pick your brain on this. And this is kind of a outside the industry thing. 15 years, not even 15, 20 years ago, people would buy in offices these big printer scanners. You go and you do the scanner and you'd buy it outright and you'd buy their maintenance plan. That day is gone. Everybody, when they get a printer, they're doing it as a hardware model, right? It's not even a lease. It is just a hardware as a service model. That is an example of how an industry has shifted their entire billing model as a result of hardware and software changes. What do you think is going to be the impact to the financial side or the billing side? Do you think we're going to see more of a shift back to this kind of hardware as a service? Like, how do you view that?
Again, I think it's an and conversation, because I just like, I do think there will be plenty of OpEx versus CapEx is basically what you're asking.
Right.
I think we've been primarily a CapEx industry for a lot of reasons. And I believe there'll be a fine size level of CapEx. But again, we've been like at the triangle of opportunity. Most of our existence as an industry is at the high end, not as we go more down market, right? The market's going to go like this, frankly, in a lot of ways. Like we believe it'll just do this, but no, it's actually this is what's happening in the market. So but this part in the bottom, when I did that, is actually going to expand to be greater than the top 10% or whatever it is that right now makes up 100%. I wrote a post recently. It was like a Coke can that said like 90% of our conversation and what we do and decisions that are made in our industry is for 10% of the market.
Yeah, right.
I think it switches to where your question actually has more to do, in my opinion, is the larger part of our market will be in a OpEx manner that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Than CapEx. It's just the CapEx part is smaller.
Yeah.
Because even, let's be real, like as organizations get bigger and bigger, at some point, some of the economics break for them where it makes more sense to be CapEx than OpEx, even at the high end, top end, right? Or some people have just a model. Like if I'm a real estate developer, I own some of those buildings. I also make some to sell. Like, so OpEx would maybe make more sense, or even maybe CapEx. Depends on how the finances work for it, right? So I just think it has more to do with market. This idea, though, where people are like, it's never going to happen. It's like, man, I'm happy to place that bet. Anybody like, let's do that, because I think these historical, the next 30 years has little to nothing to do with the past. but we utilize the past to dictate what's happening. I just don't agree. I'm not going to die in the hill that says it's not going to happen. I laugh all day long at that.
Yeah, I 100%. And I think it's funny to see how a lot of these manufacturers now, when I go to a lot of the industry events, where they're shifting their narrative away from I'm an intrusion company to I'm a security suite business. You're seeing that with Verkada, with Brivo, with DMP,
Well,
and they're moving away from, hey, this is the only thing I do. And honestly, we're an alarm business. That's the roots of our business, but we are not ignoring the fact that in 10 years, 15 years, alarms are going to represent the minority of the security investment, and it's going to be consolidated into video and or access control. That is what
well,
most
it's
people are
happening
going to.
all over the world.
Right.
Like here in North America, it happens to be where alarm and the rest of it's separated. But I actually think what you're seeing there too is this desire to be the platform.
Yeah.
In certain markets there, who's going to be the user interface that brings together. That's why if you do like Venn diagrams, it's interesting to watch. Like even GSOCs are competitors of access control products and video products, where it's sort of like who controls the interface is the person who thinks they're going to win. But I think how it works out, I do think just like the enterprise, if I take a Salesforce competes with everybody on like everything, but their core part of their business is CRM, and like they don't give that up, frankly, to go get the other stuff. So they'll team and partner with their competition at some point. They got APIs, they've got app exchanges, and all those things.
Yeah.
And if you as a customer, what I think is wonderful is as a customer now, I'm going to be able to have best in class choice if I want to.
That's right.
I also can say, you know what? I actually don't mind having a siloed system because it fits my business of what I want.
Yeah.
The consumer, in my opinion, here is going to win because you have choice, especially as more of these people open up APIs, more middleware companies come into play now to go to tie systems that have never historically been built to go do it. Like, again, I think we're asking some systems to be 7-foot centers also, and they're just never going to be. So it's like, fine, let me bring in, the middleware that helps tie that together. And let's not kid ourselves. You have some of the world's largest institutions and companies entering into our space that are going to dynamically change the business models and how we show up. And on top of that, what's always been weird to me as an industry, and I talked about it today, I've written recently about this idea that we need anthropologists and people in our industry. Because as an industry, we find an immense amount of value on protecting people, caring for people. But we don't really care to know who they are.
That's right.
Like we don't. But all of a
don't
sudden,
say that too loud. Yeah.
No, it's true though.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I agree.
All of a sudden, this. Because they were a card or a fob, and if the card or fob worked, they were allowed in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Majority. This in biometrics, I now know who that person is, and I have to have a different relationship with them.
That's right.
To where there's an expectation change that's going to happen. They have a vote. So do these big tech companies. So things are changing.
Yeah. I've got another question for you. This is a little off topic, but I'm curious. This is purely out of curiosity for myself. I think 10 years ago, we saw a lot of industry highlights that said, gone are the days of proprietary hardware. Proprietary hardware is gone. It's all going to be non-proprietary. That's where the industry is going. But man, we see companies like Verkada right now that are proprietary, that are growing at a massive pace, and they've got primarily proprietary hardware. Where do you think that fits? I know you like the both and thing, and I'm good with that. But what's your perspective on the proprietary hardware in the industry and kind of that as a business model?
Yeah, so I think a couple things. I think even Verkada itself is an evolution of what they're doing. Like they support OnVIF now. They never did before, right? They're like, so you can even see how they're changing and doing. Yeah. I also believe if you watch the cadence of how they develop product and what they do, there's typically a build first and then partner later mentality that they have in a lot of areas. So I think they're an early company. I also think we treat everybody with the same time horizon. Where if you look at what they're like 2 years out, a year out from an IPO. So like what they're motivated with is very different than some other companies. So decisions they make today maybe for that versus some other organizations where I'm a privately held company that's not worried about that. So like I can make the same argument in the opposite way of like a DMP or a
Yeah.
Genentech,
Right.
right? Where it's like, so I don't know, pick which end of the poison pill you want, but
Yeah.
they're just different beasts that we try to put a lens on it.
Yeah.
So that said, how I think this shapes out, I think customer demand is going to drive a lot of this, and what the customer wants, they're going to be able to go select. So I do think certain areas you're seeing the importance of value of that piece of hardware decreasing to where a open standards or APIs,
Yeah.
integration capabilities are going to shift in certain areas. Like, for instance, I think the controller, a reader, somewhat commoditized type products, you're also seeing demand for them to be different, where I want pieces of hardware to not only do one thing but do many things. So
Yeah.
if I treat a controller like an IoT device,
Yeah.
because it's a data sensor, it's also a door device. Like, I want it to be so the demands are going to shift it to where it makes more sense to go do that. I also think you're starting to see, a lot of these hardware companies who before didn't even have the capabilities of accepting cash that's done in a reoccurring software
Yeah,
model,
that's
or the only way they made money was on that. But how a lot of the public companies work, they start to get permission from their investor base to allow them to be able to change their business models, and
Yeah.
they do it over time. So I do think as time goes on, the value pooling pulls them to a point where they're like, you know what, how I made $1 of yesterday doesn't matter to me as much as it's going. So I will shift my mindset to how I make money, which will open it up.
Yeah.
So a combination of a lot of those things, I think, will drive. Listen, some people will argue like the way that Salesforce locks you in into what goes on too. I mean, that's like, so it's not any different. It's the flexibility, the choice,
Yeah.
the customer's ability to go do it that's going to drive a lot of that. And I think we will trail behind that.
Yeah.
Where historically cottage industry didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Now mainstream market, again, will that cottage still exist and that stuff? Yes. But the broader, what we'll be talking about will be more of what the mainstream market looks like, and the mainstream market adopts standards, it adopts open products, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. I think one thing that I think is interesting and as a takeaway that I'm beginning to think a lot about and try to educate my sales team on all the time, and I talk to owners about this all the time, is you're going to have to, as these industries shape up, especially as we move closer to an enterprise technology, you're going to have to deliver when you're selling more value than just security solutions. Like, you're going to have to deliver some business value and create a business case to the customer for your solution. And we talk about that a lot. Like, we have a lot of retail clients that this is, my sales guy got hit with this. We have a multi-site location it's a furniture store, and they were proposing a video surveillance solution. And he went in front of the CFO, and the CFO said, "Hey, this is great. Like, I believe it's going to keep me more secure, but like, what else can it do for me to help me generate more money or save me money?" And I said, "Man, that's a great question." And the question he's asking is, "Hey, how can I use this as a business tool to drive more revenue or more profit, cut costs for me in my business?" And for him, the use case ended up being hotspot analysis around where they were hanging out around displays.
Yes.
And I think that we're seeing that more.
Utility plus.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
That's why you're a systems integrator as far as I'm concerned. You're not a security integrator.
That's right. Completely agree. And it's funny too, like, another company we're working with, enterprise company, that they are so dead set on the data. They're making a massive push in AI. And so we've been hearing forever that, hey, access control data, video data, that is so important to the end user. But we haven't seen a whole lot of practical examples of that, or at least I haven't until recently. We had several enterprise clients who are actually paying tens of thousands of dollars to get the data out of their access control platform so they can ingest it into their data layer, their data warehouse, that they can use to query all sorts of different stuff for employee behavior. And this is the first time I've seen them say, "Hey, we're not even integrated. It's this AI tool, the data warehouse that they have built." They're saying, "We're going to pay. We just want the API documentation. We're going to pay tens of thousands of dollars." This isn't a Fortune 500 business. This is a sub half a $500 million business that's paying to get this data from all their locations so that they can understand their employee behavior better, which I think is a shift in this market.
100%. And that is example of, are we a data industry that's applied to security?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
I want to close out with one last question, which is, can you give our listeners one very tactical piece of advice on, hey, if you are trying to adopt this change, if you're trying, and it could be just, hey, adjust your mindset. But if you were going to start today, you're going to walk in as the owner of a 40-year-old security business, and you want them to shift over time, not immediately, from a security integrator to a systems integrator mindset, which is ultimately what we're talking about. What would you tell them step one is? Where would you have them start?
I mean, create a vision of what you want your company to be for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, just start there. Like, what do you think the core parts, and it can be that you're just going to focus on security. That's fine.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of other opportunities that exist beyond that too. So I would set your strategy in growth for the next 30 years, not as an iteration. Again, pretend this is the Men in Black thing.
Yeah.
Erase your brain.
Yeah.
Great. I fundamentally understand security. Now, though, I want to understand what my strategy is, how we're going to apply it into the marketplace that we believe will be viable for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
And then after that, I would take a look at my skill sets of what I have on board to support it.
Yeah.
I'd understand who are the customers that I'm targeting, how am I messaging, how am I going after them, and what are my expectations I have of the partners and the products that we work with in order to go do that. Like all of those things. And I would set the company up to go support that. A lot easier said than done.
No doubt.
But I believe, though, it depends on your time horizon as an idiot. So we go to these events and I meet with integrators, and it'll be like their dad and the son.
Yeah.
The dad will be like, oh, there's a lot. And the son's like, what about AI? What about this? What about that? What about that? Right. And you can see right there the friction that is like the dad has a time horizon of 5 years.
That's right.
Son or daughter has the time horizon of 25, and their strategy is friction. Now, some of the most successful ones that I've seen, even in locksmithing, there's a handful of them. This guy Killian, I love him. He's in Ireland. He's a locksmith. His dad handles the old school locksmithing side of their business. Great business. He handles the electronics, and it's totally separate. Now they overlap, but instead of his electronic side outsourcing to a locksmith to handle doors, he brings in his own company, right?
Right.
So, and it's a lead source across. But that's how they're bridging the inevitableness where they know that his business is probably going to be much greater than the locksmithing that's been there, and both of them are happy.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. No, I love that. Lee, we could talk for hours, man. This has been super interesting.
Not one of my problems.
No, man, I love it. I think this is great. I think this is going to be incredibly valuable for our listeners, because it is for us, right? Like, this is something that we are thinking about a lot, and it's something we talk about all the time, which is think about the end in mind. What is your plan? You can't adjust to where you are today if you don't know where you want to be tomorrow. And this is something that we're constantly trying to figure out. And so that's a big reason why we wanted to have you come on and talk about this, is to help our listeners understand, what does tomorrow potentially look like, so they can make informed decisions and plans today. And ultimately, we can be a more proactive as an industry. Well, Lee, we appreciate it, man. You have been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Lee, where can people find you? If they've got questions, they want to learn more.
No problem. You can LinkedIn is a great place. Lee Odess. You can hit me there, or lee@leeodess.com is my email. And actually, for any of your listeners or any of your partners in that, if they like this type of conversation with us, like, happy to give them access to our Slack channel that we have that's growing, the community we have online. So all I need is their email, and I'll add them to it, and we can continue these types of conversations. So that's also a good place to reach me.
That's great. Lee, we appreciate having you on board. Of course, if you like this content, like and subscribe for us. We so appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.